welcome to the very first episode. Good morning, Victor, and welcome to the very first episode of On the Tee podcast. Just want to say thank you very much for coming on and joining us this morning. You're just off the back of two big battles at the Tournament of Champions. How are you?
I'm pretty good. It's good to be home, back in the sun. Um, it was very cold in New York, so It's good to be back in the south of France.
And you've a couple of days rest, or maybe a week's rest before the French nationals.
That's right. Yeah. Got a few days at home before traveling again for French nationals, and then back in the States for North America for 3 other professional events over there. So it's an exciting and busy month of February coming up.
So let's just get straight in. I'm happy to skip, let's say, the first 18 years of your squash or your life. First thing I want to go for is obviously you're one of a few actually on the tour that studied Ivy League. Well, one of several that studied Ivy League, and one of a few that have graduated from Harvard. How did you find that?
Well, it was probably I always laugh because when I got here, one of the faculty members giving a speech said that it would be a transformative experience, and I've always found that word pretty big. But it was in a sense, because of the way I see life these days, the way um, my relationships have evolved, and some of my best friends are some of my former teammates that I can't see every day, but it's every time we see each other, like this week in New York, it's like all days, uh, and so yeah, it changed me in the way I see life, in the way I see my relationships, and also how I see myself after squash, really. Um, Also kind of made me question how important squash can be in my life. It reminded me of how much I wanted to pursue that goal of being a professional player, and wanting to really push the boundaries and try to get to the top of the ranking. And and that was a great thing to have to balance both squash and academics. For that reason, really had to wait for 4 years until I can really go full time, with the maturity that comes with it. And yeah, I'm really excited to be in this professional squash journey, but I'm also looking forward to the next chapter once I put squash on the side. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned there obviously, juggling both squash training and your academics. How did you find that? One thing I'd be interested to know is sort of how much leniency were you given in terms of your grades and your academics compared to, um, non-athletes, so to speak.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a lot to say about all this. I'd say first, I mean, I came from a small town in the south part of France, where my whole schooling was done in French. So it's kind of a big change for me to go to the States and study in English. I remember the first few lectures that I went to. It was very interesting, and obviously, um and I felt like I learned a ton just listening to professors. But as soon as I would get out of the lecture hall, I would just completely forget about everything, because it was hard to kind of um get all the information and process that information and remember that information. So it took me a few months to kind of get used to taking notes and having to look over those notes again and again and again, so that I could process all this information. And I've had my friends helping out editing my essays as well, because it would take double the amount of time just to make sure there weren't uh, any errors, really. So it was tedious at the beginning, but I kind of gain confidence one semester at a time. And obviously, I had my teammates helping me to adjust and feel good balancing squash and academics. In terms of leniency with college athletes, I'd say there is none. Everybody is treated kind of the same way because even if you're not a college athlete, you will do a lot of extracurricular activities aside from your studies. So most people have their afternoon off, uh, like off lectures, and they can use that time to go to clubs, to do their homework. There's also a lot of homework, but for us college athletes, it would be training in the afternoon, and then obviously you'll spend long hours in the evening after dinner, just studying, doing your homework, and planning for the weeks ahead. But in terms of playing professional while I was on campus, I try and take it by small steps. So freshman year, I only played one tournament in the first semester. I only played one tournament in the suburbs of Boston, and then used Thanksgiving to kind of travel outside the U.S.
Yeah.
I went in the UK in Birmingham and played a 5K over there and came back after Thanksgiving. I missed a couple of international events as well, not playing team world championships and European team championships, so events like this ones. But yeah, starting in the second semester, I started to play a few more events in the States, and then used the whole summer to kind of go to Australia and New Zealand and play as many events as possible. And then when I felt like I was balancing my squash and academics quite well, I decided I would try and play more events my sophomore year and my senior year. Junior year was during COVID, so I was home doing homeschooling, well, school online, so it was a bit different. But yeah, overall, I felt like I took it step by step, and I'd say most college students wouldn't be able to do it just because it's a lot of planning, a lot of discipline, sacrificing a part of my social life. Sometimes looking back, I feel like there were some social events that I regret not going to, um, especially the team events at the end of the season, where I really prioritize my professional events.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't have all perfect when you're in there, and you have to learn with your errors. And despite all this, I felt like it was a great 4 years or 2 year and a half on campus. I met my girlfriend as well over there, so there's still a lot of connection with the college. And every time I go back to New York or anywhere else in the world where I can meet one of my former teammates or friends, it's always a good time.
And obviously, you're saying sort of you took it step by step through college, and then sort of navigating your way through life on the tour. Looking back now that you know what you can do on the tour, how far you've gone on the tour, at 17, if would you be 100% sure you would go through a college experience again, or would there be any part of you that would want to just dive straight into professional squash?
No, I'd say I wanted to go and pursue some academics after high school. I think it's also part of the way I was raised. Education was always first priority over squash. And it's kind of if the school grades weren't there, I wouldn't be able to go to tournaments, especially on the European circuit. So always made sure the grades were good, and my behavior, my attitude was also good. Um, but then in high school, I kind of got passionate about academics, to be honest, and I wanted to do more of it. and balance both squash and high level studies. And I try and find college programs in France where I could balance squash and academics, and that was tough at the high level. I kind of had to choose between squash and academics, which I didn't want to do, and that's why when I had that option to go to the States, I I really focused on that one because I thought that would be my best shot at balancing squash and academics and getting a lot of opportunities, um, both during my college experience and after when my squash career would be over. Um, I still took a gap year after high school so that I could apply to colleges in the States and also play full-time pro and validate the project of being a full-time professional players for years. Because there's a big difference between playing professional squash while you're in high school, college, or you have a part-time job, and playing full-time pro, and squash is becoming a bigger part of your life because it's also your job and that's how you have to make money.
Yeah.
And sometimes you forget about the 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 the, the reason why the first reason why you're playing squash because it became your job and you can focus a bit too much on money and not enough on enjoyment and health as well. Um, so yeah, that's why I took a gap year. It was actually the perfect way to also take more time to apply to colleges and make better decisions. And so when I got there and I saw how my senior teammates were interviewing to get jobs and how stressing that was, I was like, well, you should probably enjoy your few years of professional squash career, and then you'll get back in the job market later on. And that's what I did. I try and train as small as possible while I was on campus so that I could improve my level, and I try and play as many competitions as I could so that I could bring my ranking up. Um, but to be honest, when I got on campus, my goal was to stay in the top 100. So I wasn't expecting much from uh, the professional side, uh, like how much I would improve in the ranking because I didn't know how many competitions I would be able to play. Um, and slowly I realized that I could do better than that, and so I readjust my goals. And I think I graduated being in the top 20 in the world, which was a huge accomplishment for me and helped me tremendously to kind of keep going up while when I finally became a full-time professional player.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's something I'm sure not a lot of people can say they've been able to do. Graduate from Harvard and be top 20 in the world at any sport. That leads us on. You sort of mentioned about how you're disciplined and not the discipline has to be there to sort of juggle the academics and the squash. Not many people could do that. On a day-to-day basis now, how disciplined would you be with your diet? And are you? We've obviously seen on a few of the PSA documentaries that your training and everything's meticulous. What would your food intake, and do you track what you eat, or are you quite loose with that?
Um, well, I guess that's some of the things that I had to learn while I was on campus. I think food's always been a big part of my life, something that I enjoy a lot. Um, and I enjoy eating well, but when you go to the States, that's a bigger thing to do, and there's so many ways that you can kind of just let yourself go and have fun with the highly processed food and drinks. Um, and so I guess at the end of every semesters I had like a few extra kilos for sure. Um, but I was okay with it. I mean, I think the hardest part as well is that it's in the evening when you're studying so much. So you get dinner around 6:37, and then starting at 8 p.m. you're studying until usually minimum 11, maybe midnight, and
Yes.
around that time, 11 p.m., you kind of get really hungry again, just because studying takes a lot of cognitive energy, and then your body is just demanding food again, just before going to sleep, which is always which is not which is not a good feeling, going to sleep while your body is asking for food. So you kind of have to snack and get some food at that time, and usually it's not the best food you can get. So I mean, I wasn't that strict while I was on campus. I started to kind of set more goals when I turned full-time professional. Not in terms of trying to lose weight, for example, but more in terms of managing my energy throughout the day. So making sure I get good breakfast so that morning sessions going well, and I don't get angry before lunchtime. Making sure lunch isn't too heavy so that I don't have headaches or any other symptoms when I go to my second session, or feeling tired, and making sure I get all the nutrients required for dinner so that I can recover as well as possible. So my goals are more leaning towards managing my energy rather than really being on a strict diet.
And would you track calories or anything like that, or just, as you say, just make sure it's energy focused?
Not really. It's more energy focused and trying to make sure that all the nutrients are all in my plates for every meal. And also nowadays I'm trying to learn how to manage that while I'm in competition, because it's easy to do that, or it's easier to do it when you're in a home environment where you have access to all the familiar nutrients that your family are using, rather than when you're traveling and, for example, you're in a flight and you have to choose between the food that they serve and the food that you might bring with you. Um, and when you're away and you have to go to restaurants every day, that's also when you have to be a bit careful on what you eat.
Yeah. And one of the things I'm sort of taking away from it is how disciplined you are, how structured things can be for yourself.
Yeah.
Probably more so than a lot of others. But how much would you plan in advance, and how far in advance would you plan, for the next 3 months, 6 months, 2 years?
Well, in terms of training and competition, I think I've always been pretty disciplined about programming, and that comes from my dad slash coach mindset. I think it's one of the most important thing as a coach when you're coaching an athlete to compete, is to be able to plan and program in advance, because that's what's gonna programming is what's gonna help you make sure you have some good training blocks, and so you get ready for you, or you're informed for your tournaments. It's what makes sure that you don't get injured because you overtrain or you overcompete, and it's what keeps the motivation up, because you're looking forward to the next competition. So when I was a junior, I guess I would try and plan a year in advance as much as possible. On the professional tour, it's a bit more difficult because you've got entry deadlines to tournaments every month. So you're trying to plan a year in advance in terms of the international competitions you will compete at. like the European individuals, French nationals, team events. Those are marked on the calendar as soon as possible, and then you're trying to create a few tournament blocks throughout the season of 2 to 3 weeks, so that you can travel and play those events and come back for 3 4 weeks to train. And obviously things get tougher when you add um, league matches all over Europe. And for most players that are not in the top 50, that's the way they make money, really. Um, so so that's the hard part where ideally you'd like to have your 3 4 weeks at home to have some good training blocks and then go away for 3 weeks of competition and do that all over again throughout the season. But obviously you have other ways of making money, and so sometimes you kind of have to respond positively to those requests. Um, in order to cash in. Really,
Yeah.
as simple as that. But I guess nowadays with the Olympics in sight, you kind of think even more long term in terms of where you want to be in, well, now 3 years and a half. I think it's the goal of every squash player nowadays to kind of get at the peak of their career during the Olympics. It's kind of historic for our sport, and so everybody wants to aim for that gold medal. Um, and so since I guess September 24, we've been uh, we've been rethinking a bit more how to think more long term in terms of squash development, in terms of physical training, in terms of competitions I would like to play. For example, I'm trying to play a few competitions during the summer so that you can kind of get ready to. I mean, Olympics are happening during the summer, so you want to make sure you can replicate kind of the training that you will do to get ready for that event the years before. So we're lucky in Europe to have the European individuals early mid-August. So that's one way to get ready for that big competition. The World Games also happening this summer, and that's the closest competition we have to the Olympics. Um, until now, I guess English and Commonwealth players had the Commonwealth Games that were the closest to what the Olympics look like. And I know the Commonwealth players were looking forward to this event. I think squash isn't in the next Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, 26.
I don't think squash is.
But yeah,
Yeah.
you have to confirm that.
Yeah, I don't think any racket
Some
sports
are
are. They've
involved.
sort of stripped it way back.
Yeah,
I think they're on a
looks
low
like
budget.
it's a very small competition this year.
Yeah.
Well, this time around. Um, but yeah, programming is a huge part of how we go about our business as a squash player, I think.
Yeah. And taking a look at the bigger picture, um, looking at what Farag and El Shabagi put on just 2 nights ago, you could potentially have 10 to 15 plus years. Well, probably not 15, but 10 plus years on the tour. Have you thought about life after squash? Maybe go into
Um,
coaching or step away completely, or what's the thoughts?
well, I think I could play for 10, 15 years, like
15, yeah.
Ali and Mohammed and Miguel. Miguel's 39 and still very
Yes.
fit, and I have a pretty healthy body so far, and I think I would be able to play for that long. I just don't know if I want to really, um, because as I said earlier, I think there's more to life than squash, and I've been playing squash since I'm yeah 5 6 years old, and
Yeah.
it's been the central part of my life. Um, and I guess I want to get back in the job market a bit earlier than most professional players, so that I don't lose those interesting years in your 30s.
Yeah.
And have some room for improvements in the second chapter of my career, of my professional career. So, I mean, if you think in terms of Olympics, if we're still here in Brisbane for Brisbane 32, I guess I might want to take I might want to retire at that time when I'm 33, but it's hard to say right now, obviously. Hard to say right now. Whether I want to stay into squash or not, I guess it'll depend on how much squash will have evolved until then, and what the opportunities are in the squash world. I don't think I want to be coaching afterwards. Just as I said earlier, I've spent so much time on the squash court on the squash court. I don't know if I want to give another 10, 15, 20 years on the squash court coaching. But I would stay in the squash world in terms of I don't know, organizing events, trying to develop our professional association, or our, I don't know, our French federation, or I don't know, creating a club in France. Stuff like that would interest me, but I would also be completely fine putting squash aside and opening a new chapter in my life. I don't know yet in what area I want to work on, but definitely in the sports industry if possible, whether it's in marketing or on the events side of sport. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to finish it. We'll see what happens in the future. To finish off, I have 7 questions, quick fire. Some aren't so much quick fire. Do you want to guess why I've picked 7? What does number 7?
My highest world ranking.
Yeah, that's why I've gone for 7. Which hopefully we can improve. Maybe next time we'll only have 2 questions or 1. But the first one is, and I've asked quite a few people this week, just thinking of questions I was going to ask you, and I've asked a few people, and I've had loads of different answers for different reasons. If, say today, there was some sort of worldwide regulation that every professional sports athlete earned the same amount of money, let's just ensure your answer is not money driven, what other sport would you want to be a professional in? You can't pick squash.
If we were all earning the same amount of money,
exactly,
what other sports I would like to play?
Yeah.
Well, probably tennis. Tennis was my first sport, so.
Tennis, yeah. I had different answers such as darts, because you don't have to watch what you eat and you can drink beer. So I've had loads of different answers. Number 2, what's your favorite event to play?
On tour?
Yeah.
Probably the Tournament of Champions.
Yeah.
Or any professional events happening in France.
In France, yeah. I'm going to say you can't pick family or squash players. Who's been your biggest inspiration in your career? Are you looking further afield to someone close to you?
Not family and not squash. Okay.
Oh, you can pick squash. Let's go squash. You can pick squash.
Oh, squash?
Yeah.
Squash, definitely Greg Gauthier.
Yeah. Good answer.
Greg Gauthier and Jerry Lankou, I'd say.
What would be your favourite way to spend a tournament rest day? So if you've a day in between matches, what's your favourite way to fill that gap?
Walking outside, visiting the city, getting a nice meal.
That leads us on to our next question. What's your most if you have a day where you don't have to think about what you eat, what's your favourite choice of meal?
It would still be like I'm not a fast food guy, so it
Yeah.
would still be like a nice meal. So for example, when I'm in New York, I've got those right now I've got those three French places that I go to, and most of them are pretty much bakeries that make toasties and salads and
Comfort.
and soups. And yeah, it's more like healthy but comfort food.
Yeah. Favorite junior squash memory?
New Zealand, the World Individual Championship when I made the final.
And last question. This is a tricky one, and I want to word it right. So it's not based on. Base your answer on how much you enjoy playing this person. So pick one person currently ranked above you who you have to play for the rest of your career.
I have to play for the rest of my career.
Not in terms of who you find easiest to play, just who you find when you're on court you enjoy it.
Yeah. Above me on the ranking, I would say Ali.
Ali, yeah. Just how good he is, or
Yeah, I mean he's been the world number one for the past. I mean the most consistent world number one in the past few years, and he's the hardest player to beat right now. Maybe not at this tournament, because he's just struggling a bit with a few niggles, but yeah, I think he's the biggest challenge we have on tour.
Yeah.
Right now on a consistent basis. I was 2 points away from getting my first win a few weeks ago in Hong Kong. So yeah, I'd like to play him for the rest of my career so that I can get one win.
Well, yeah, we'll finish it up there. I want to say again, thank you very much for coming on and chatting this morning. I really appreciate it. Hope it wasn't too tricky or too monotonous. But it was more of an insight. A lot of it was into the discipline, and as you say, I think the key word for anyone listening is programming and trying to stick to that.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, for having me for the first ever interview on your podcast.
Not a problem. Thank you very much, and I'll chat to you soon.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Perfect.